Welcome to the next episode of the Real Leaders series for the Canadian real estate industry. I'm your host, Ryan Ram of Matrix360, and we're excited today to collaborate with Informa Canada to deliver a platform for leaders to share their experiences. The intent of this series is to engage with business leaders as they share their insights and wisdom. Before we commence, a bit about us, Matrix360. We are a talent management and workplace advisory platform. It is with great privilege and responsibility that we partner with real estate firms to advocate for people in our industry. Today we are here at RealREIT Conference in Toronto, Canada, and we are honored to be joined by Jonathan Gitlin, President and CEO of RioCan REIT. Welcome, Jonathan. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to be here.
Great, so let's jump right into this. And our first question, what was your vision for your career when you first started out in the business world?
It was survival, quite honestly. When I started off in the business world, I was new to it. I had been a lawyer prior to jumping into a business role at RioCan. And so obviously it was a new world for me, having come from a world of facilitating deals. I was now put in a position of actually creating deals, and that was a big transition for me. So my vision when I first jumped into the industry was to really get a grasp on it, to understand it very well, and so that I can apply the skills that I had picked up while I was a lawyer and put them to good use in the business world. So that was my vision when I first entered the real estate business. But as it evolved and as I evolved as a real estate executive, my vision expanded, and obviously it was to continue to create and add value for RioCan and its unit holders. And it's something that I still wake up every morning and look to do every day.
That's awesome. Did you know that you wanted to go into real estate back when you were in law or even before that in school?
Absolutely. So I had seen a lot of people growing up, friends, parents, or icons in the industry like Ed Sunshine, who's my boss, or Michael Emery, or a number of others who had started out as lawyers and then transitioned over to business roles in real estate. And to me, law was a natural first step, a great learning ground. And I actually went into commercial real estate law for that very purpose. I mean, I couldn't have predicted exactly what my path would have been, but it certainly was something that was on top of mind when I elected to go into law. And when I went into law, I learned a lot about and lessons that were valuable that are applicable in the real estate business. So it was for me, a great path. And so I would say it was something that I have always wanted to do, be in the real estate industry. So living the dream.
That's great. Not everyone gets to do that. What is it that drives you to get out of bed in the morning?
Really loud children. But other than that, it's a love of your job. I think having been in positions in my entire life outside of RioCan that I didn't necessarily love, it's tougher to energize yourself to get into work and to create and add value. But when you're really passionate about what you do and you love the people you work with and you love the objectives you're trying to achieve, it makes life a lot easier. And so when I wake up every morning with the notion that I'm coming in and actually making a difference, making calls that will add value to our unit holders, that will build better developments in the city and other cities in Canada, that really drives me and it really motivates me, and it makes it a very easy task getting up in the morning and coming into work.
That's great. And so let me ask you, when was the first time in your life when you realized that you had the power to create change or do something meaningful?
Oh, well, I'm going to go back to the ninth grade, and I worked at Mr. Grocer, the grocery store up the street from me. And my manager told me that what I should be doing is taking the old eggs out of the expired egg crates and putting them in newer crates. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that because that is just illegal. And I felt that was a big step in my life because it taught me a moral lesson. But being a little more present with respect to that, I think I guess I've always tried to make a difference and make some change and meaningful change. When I was a lawyer, I hope I influenced the way in which deals were executed. executed and help my clients at that time make better decisions on the transactions that they participated in. And now, as an executive at RioCan, particularly in my most recent role as Chief Operating Officer and President, the calls I make actually they result in changes to the organization, changes to some of the transactions we do, changes in the way people view RioCan. And to me, those are really meaningful changes and things that I'm very proud of being able to do. So again, the scope of the changes that I've been able to create have magnified over time as my position has become more and more prominent.
Is there something more recent in terms of some of those changes that's been a decision that you've taken a part of or that you've made that you felt has been really like rewarding in your career?
Well, I think more recently as president of RioCan, I've really tried to enhance the culture at the at the organization. A lot more forward thinking in terms of having our staff participate in innovation projects, having them be more collaborative with one another, and implementing programs that enhance their day-to-day work life. And I think that's important, particularly in today's day and age, where work is supposed to be a place where you actually thrive and enjoy the atmosphere, as opposed to the opposite of that. And so I think some of the things that I've been trying to implement at RioCan over the last year and a half in this current role, those are changes that I think are very much meaningful. From a pure business perspective, I think there's a lot of things that we're doing at RioCan that I've obviously had a great hand in helping with, where we are changing the profile of RioCan. We're getting more urban. We're getting more development focused. We're taking a lot of our assets that are suited for redevelopment and actually executing on those redevelopments. And I think those are changes that we're implementing that make us a better company and a better investment for our unit holders.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of changes at different levels.
Yeah, and I can add to that actually. I mean, again, just supporting our sustainability and ESG initiatives at RioCan. I think that's something that we focus more and more on in the more recent history, and I think that also changes the profile of our company and makes us a more responsible corporate citizen.
Awesome. And could you tell me, from a personal standpoint, in your career, of one or some of the either struggles, conflicts, frustrations that you've encountered on your journey, which have shaped you as a person?
Well, I think one of the challenges I've had again was making that transition into the business world. When you're a lawyer, you obviously you're taught to be very conservative and always look at the downside risk. And when you're a business person, you're taught to balance that downside risk with the possible reward. And I think that transition was definitely a challenge for me, but one that over time and under the tutelage of people like Ed Sunshine, you get a real sense of how to balance risk with adequate reward. So I think that was a big challenge, but also a great learning experience for me. I think being expanding your horizons as now being appointed as president of RioCan, going beyond simply being a steward of the limited constituents within your existing group to being all of a sudden a steward for the entire company and all of the constituents within it. That's a bigger profile, a bigger responsibility, and that transition is certainly it comes with great reward and great gratification, but it's certainly a challenge as well.
Did it feel scary at all to step into that role?
I don't scare easily, and so I wouldn't say it was scary, but I would say that I like to rise to challenge and I like to accept challenge, and it was certainly a challenge. One of which I wasn't intimidated by because we have such a great base at RioCan. So to take that base and make it a little better is not intimidating to me. It's certainly a challenge, and it's a great challenge, and one that I'm again gratified to do every day.
And so, to talk about leadership in general, many leadership styles today are under the microscope, whether it's private companies or public companies. And so, from your perspective, what is the greatest challenge facing leaders today?
Another great question, and one that I would answer by saying it's the avoidance of hypocrisy. Really saying and doing, or sorry, doing what you say. And so it's easy to get up on a soapbox and preach about how you're changing culture, or you're changing the dynamics of a business, or you're going to sort of advance a business through a strategy, and then not follow through on that. And I think in this day and age, under the microscope that we're under, and under the intense scrutiny of public companies, but all companies really, if you promise something and you say you're going to do something and don't follow through with it, you're often seen as, I mean, as hypocritical, and as I think your integrity suffers. So I think it really is critical under that intense microscope to ensure that you follow up with those initiatives and actually follow through with them, because both your internal constituents, those who rely on you to set course on strategy, as well as external constituents like unit holders or our tenants, if you don't follow up with what you say, then they'll often lose faith in you and lose trust in you, and that is something that you don't want to happen. So that is something that I'm keenly focused on.
It sounds like that real like moral integrity has kind of been a thread since those egg counting days, all the way through.
Absolutely. I think I credit it to good upbringing, and again, being around good people. Being mentored by people like Ed Sunshine, who have always put integrity and the interest of the company in front of his own. And I think you learn valuable lessons from great people like that.
So I want to talk about that kind of culture people side for a moment. I want to share a few facts with you about the Canadian population. So according to the last StatsCan census, Canada has the highest growing population within G7 countries. Right now, we're over 32 million people. 82% of the Canadian population live in large and medium-sized centres, which is also one of the highest concentrations among G7 nations. And our province, Ontario, remains by far the most populous part of Canada, representing 38.3% of the Canadian population. On top of that, according to our last Matrix Canadian Real Estate Diversity Workplace Survey in 2016, we found that in Ontario, over 52% of the population in urban centres were female, while less than 34% of women are in leadership roles. And as well, between 35 and 54% of working populations in urban centers were people of color, but less than 25% of leadership roles are made up of people of color. So given all of this data, along with the changes that we see in our demographics today, newcomers to the province, the different generations working together in the workforce, I want to ask you, as a leader, how have you adapted to these changes in our communities in order to foster more inclusive workplaces?
Wow, that was a breathful. I should have taken notes on all those statistics, but to answer your overarching question, we certainly at RioCan focus on inclusive hiring and ensuring that we've got a diverse workforce. Not only because of the optics of it, that's the least of it, but quite honestly, I think there's a lot of practicality surrounding it. We, as a provider of retail and residential and office spaces, want to get points of view that span different horizons, and not just a very singular point of view. And to have a senior executive or a board or even a general team made up of a number of different ethnicities, and obviously made up of female and male employees, it gives us the ability to canvass those groups, and get a good diverse view on what people want to see in developments, what people want to see in shopping experiences, and what people want to see in their day-to-day work life. And so I think if you have a singular focus in your workforce, you're really cutting off those capabilities of canvassing a greater spectrum of diversification. So I think you'd really be missing out if you didn't have that. Moreover, color of your skin or your sex or background has nothing to do with what's in your head and your intelligence and your ability to create value. And so we are pretty much blind to any of those factors. All we look at is how an individual will add value to RioCan and its unit holders. And thankfully, we've got, because of that viewpoint, a very diverse workforce and a very diverse board.
That's great to hear. I think something that, as an industry, we're talking about and trying to find ways. And so it sounds like it's been top of mind for you and your firm to move in that direction and to make sure that that's on the table when you make decisions.
Absolutely. And we, in fact, trumpet those very factors. When you look at our most recent sustainability report, which we publish, now we're publishing on an annual basis, but our inaugural one was published earlier this year. And it shows some of those statistics and it shows the predominance of women in our workplace. I'm not sure if it breaks down ethnicity, but there's certainly a lot of very key factors in there that point to and really trumpet the diversity at RioCan.
Awesome. And so the Real Stories Leadership Series has really been here to showcase personal insights and wisdom of real estate leaders such as yourself. So, a couple of final personal questions for you. Thinking more critically at this point in time in society, we reflect a lot on our actions and our experiences. If you had to time travel back to when you were younger, what piece of leadership advice that you know now would you give your younger self?
Well, I think it's one of those pieces of advice that has probably been heard a million times, but I'm going to repeat it because I really do think it's the most important piece of advice that anyone ever gave me. It's quite simply that you only get one reputation. And particularly in a place like Canada, which is a fairly small community, if you blow that reputation, it's very hard to get it back. So I think it's critical that in every move you make in life as an executive, as an individual, as a person, as a human being, you have to think as to how that impacts your reputation. And if it's something that you feel will have that will reflect really negatively on your reputation, it's very hard to rewind that. And so whenever I do make a decision, whenever I do make a move in life, I do always think about how that reflects on me, my family, my organization, and my overall reputation. Because again, once it's gone, it's hard to get back. So you only get one of them.
Yeah, it ties back to the egg to the egg basket
That's
again.
right. And by the way, that manager, Mr. Grosser, was let go shortly after.
Oh, good thing you kept your morals in check.
That's right.
Um, and so our last question: what do you think is the largest misconception about you in your career?
That I'm short. Uh, no, I think the largest misconception about me in my career, I'm not, I guess I'm not self-aware enough to know that there are a lot of misconceptions about me. I try to be as transparent and straightforward as possible. So my hope is that what you see is what you get, and there aren't a lot of misconceptions. Now, I know that's not the answer you're searching for, but unfortunately, that's what I'm going to go with because I really hope that there aren't a lot of misconceptions about me.
All right. Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for being here today and for a great conversation.
It's a pleasure.
On behalf of Matrix360 and Informa Canada, we really appreciate you taking the time to share your perspective and experiences with us. If you would like to learn more about Matrix360 or Informa Canada, please check out our websites. Thank you very much again.